Hello and welcome to another daily devotion. As this week we look through the prism of faith and DC Comics. So it's always good to have a mentor or someone that you can look up to, whether it's in the church and it's a saint, or it's a faith leader, or it's a coach, or a parent or grandparent, or aunt or uncle, a big brother or sister that kind of emulates the things that you're striving to be. But in the world, because of some of our prejudices and biases, not every group of people always had somebody that was a good role model or somebody that was lifted up as a positive role model in a culture. And we have some of this dynamic in the DC Comics when, for the very first time, a black superhero is introduced to the DC universe in Black Lightning. Now, as a kid, I'll be honest, I always thought in watching Super Friends in the Hall of Justice that it was always Black Vulcan was the first African American superhero. But I found out that the writer who had originally made the first Black Lightning actually had her ideas stolen, and then Black Vulcan became later, and there's a big rights battle about what had happened, and she wrote about it in the comics, how some evil powers had stolen the ideas and powers of Black Lightning. But anyway, Black Lightning was a superhero named Jefferson Price, who's a highly educated teacher by day and crime fighter by night, who could use his electric powers to cast lightning bolts or thunderbolts and to zap the bad guys. And it came out in the early mid 1950s. And then I think about the things that are happening in the civil rights in the United States at the time, the courage to, not just the courage, but for African American children to have somebody who, all their heroes before were Caucasian. So the idea that they have suddenly Black Lightning and then Apache Chief as a Native American hero coming into the scene in the 1950s was a powerful thing, an empowering thing. And if you think about it, because nowhere in our culture until recently did you have any of the Disney princesses. They're all Caucasian, dolls, Barbies. So when you're on a minority, you don't often have anybody who looks like you who is seen as a hero or called one by the rest of society. And that's why I thought Black Lightning was really a good way to start, especially this month of African American history celebration, that here was a hero that came out who worked with the Hall of Justice, and through his power, the world was changed. And it reminds me very much of the story of Esther. So you have Esther, and they're labeled the Jewish people who are living in the kingdom of Darius or Xerxes. And it says that there's Haman, who has this prejudice against a certain people. And, these Jews don't worship, they don't eat, they act very different than the laws of our people, our sophistication. They're less thans. And I want you to write an edict, O king, so I can get rid of a certain people. And we see through all the twists and turns that through this minority group of Jewish people, Mordecai actually saves the king's life through telling him about an assassination attempt with Bigthana and the other one begins with a T. Tanena? No, I got that wrong. Bigthana and Terak, I think it is. But anyway, and the king forgets him, until he wakes up one night in a dream and says, oh my gosh, I forgot to honor this guy. But then you also have Queen Esther, who is a closeted Jew in the king's regime. He's just hired her for her look, not hired her, my gosh. He's just brought her into his harem, I guess. All right. Anyway, for her beauty. And he doesn't know anything about her religious background. He hasn't been carrying on deep conversations with her. And she's hidden it to protect it and keep it safe. So it's not a skin color differentiation, but an ethnic differentiation and a faith differentiation. And her uncle sends her notice, of course, to say, don't think that just because you're in the office of queen that this won't touch you. But who knows, maybe God has put you in this situation of power for such a time as this to speak on behalf of our people. She said, well, I can't go to the king. I could be killed. And it's, that idea that the powerful won't give up their power without a challenge or without somebody holding up the mirror. So here Esther is talking to the king saying, what you did is wrong. And here is from the DC world, a superhero from the margins saying, hey, my people have a lot of heroes too. And don't ignore us. It comes out just a few years before Elvis Presley's In the Ghetto. Powerful song about that cyclical poverty. And one last thing I'd say about Black Lightning is I find it sad on the one hand and fascinating that he has to pretend to have this jive talk, kind of street lingo to conceal the idea that he's a highly educated, super intelligent African-American teacher. Because that's not the norm according to everybody else. That's his cover. I hope we've come a long way since then, but I think we still got a long ways to go. I'm thankful for Esther, Mordecai, and Black Lightning for continuing to push us as a people to consider the leveling of the playing field of God's people. I hope you wrestle with it a little bit too this day.